Live everywhere.
Daily Co's Radio on netrootsradio.com presents
David Walton. Kagro in the Morning Show. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Wednesday, December 14th, 2016. Gee whiz. Where to start today? Well, I don't know. Is the incoming National Security Advisor, former Lieutenant General Mike Flynn, a spy? I don't know. That's the end of the show. You make up your mind about that one. I don't know. I just, all I'm seeing is mounting evidence is all I'm saying. I'm not drawing any conclusions about it. I just have a sneaking suspicion. And isn't that really all you need to know? So I see patterns that other people don't. And sometimes maybe I need to be reined in. But get out of my way. Listen, I'm right. And you'll know you're right when you come around to my point of view. That's the way Mike Flynn approaches it. And I figure if it's good enough for the National Security Advisor, it's probably good enough for me. I'll stick with it. Why not? First thing that came to mind for me about that one was just the story a couple weeks ago, right, about how, for no particular reason, Mike Flynn apparently decided he would violate Pentagon counter-espionage rules against having an internet connection in your Pentagon office. It's just basically one quick and easy safeguard against making it really super easy to ship large amounts of sensitive data out of the Pentagon to points unknown without really having to actually physically move any of it. So, rules against it. But of course he found that to be one of those stupid bureaucratic rules and had an internet connection installed anyway, but decided apparently at the time anyhow, it's no longer a secret, but to go ahead and do it in secret because he's so bold and brave and wanted everybody to know that he just found the rule stupid and he was going to stand up to it by doing it secretly so that nobody found out about it. And, I don't know. Geez, that's kind of a weird thing. This morning I find, let's see, who was tweeting this one? Do I have it correct? Let me see if I can't grab it up here. No, of course not. Anyway, but I think, you all likely saw it this morning. And I guess it came from where? I don't even know. New York Times, Washington Post, I'll have to dig it up. But I grabbed somebody's screenshot of it. A secret U.S. military investigation in 2010 determined that Michael T. Flynn, the retired Army general tapped to serve as National Security Advisor in the Trump White House, quote, inappropriately shared, unquote, that's handed over in espionage operations, classified information with foreign military officers in Afghanistan, newly released documents show. How interesting is that? I like the euphemism, inappropriately shared, like Jonathan Pollard, inappropriately shared with Israel, except he's in jail and the other guy's going to be National Security Advisor. In other words, going to be our Colonel Jessup in the upcoming administration. Okay, he's not a spy. Whatever, except he is. All right. What else might we discuss this morning? And I think I've found my source. It was Jason Sparks, I think, had tweeted this bit along with the comment, lock him up, ? And the source originally, Washington Post, of course. And I don't know, I guess we ought to grab up that article and put it aside for discussion. Here's a photo of the general waiting to board the Trump Tower golden elevators. The golden elevators to hell, somehow. I don't know how they built that. So Craig Whitlock and Greg Miller on that article. Trump's National Security Advisor shared secrets without permission, files show. It's almost as if moving information electronically left some sort of forensic trail from which you could reconstruct pretty much what happened. Almost in the way they're trying to do with the hacks of the DNC, DCCC, etc. And by the way, I keep seeing that there's data that indicates that the Republican National Committee would have been breached as well by the same hacking groups No word from them on what documents are missing, only denials that the system was breached. Of course, that might be a place where they might be holding on to files, particularly early in the primary season, that outlined the specific weaknesses of not only Donald Trump, but of the various Republican candidates, just so they could make themselves aware of what might be coming down the pike in terms of attacks and think about how to counter them. That would be an interesting file to have on hand to begin with, or to have lifted by Russian hackers. I guess there's no particular danger, really, when you think about it, of having the Russians have their puppet. Puppet? No puppet. No puppet. You're the puppet. On a string, and with the opposition research file in their hands. Well, I don't know. I hope we don't start doing things that are mysteriously pro-Russian anytime soon, like changing the Republican Party platform. Lots to catch up on, both in the immediate orbit of Donald Trump and just a little bit outside of it. The news continues to become more and more bizarre. Joan McCarter will also join us, which is not bizarre at all. And in fact, we look forward to keep us grounded as we do our daily visits with Greg Dworkin, already sending his raft of stories ahead of him, floating it down the river, as it were. And he'll be on a raft of his own, or perhaps just clinging to a log shortly on his way down. Is Connecticut named for, is there a Connecticut River? Is that right? I just assume everybody's got a river named after their state somewhere inside it, and that's how you got your name in the first place. I'll check the geography on that one. And in the meantime, other things that I saw zipping by on Twitter that I thought made some points of interest. Let's see, was it Paul Krugman who I saw retweeting this? It wasn't his piece in the New York Times that he was tweeting, but it was interesting nonetheless. Many interesting things in the New York Times that don't even come from that guy. It's really strange. Let's see. It was a piece, actually, that I believe Dahlia Lithwick, I recall, was on the byline. And side by side with David S. Cohen, an opinion piece in the New York Times, "Buck up, Democrats, and fight like Republicans." That's a good idea. And I think probably a lot of you would agree with it. It's an interesting piece and focuses mostly on, well, the relative quiet among leading national Democrats in the time since the election, even in the face of this really just unprecedented, I don't know what even to call it, weirdness, certainly fits, but probably more drastic than that, about the Russian interference, the upside-down nature of the Electoral College as opposed to the popular vote, voting irregularities in several states, the swiftness with which they shut down the recounts, or the fact, really, that we even had to depend on somebody other than the Democratic Party to file for those recounts, the voter suppression all along the way, a million different things, and of course the Comey letter, all the elements that added up to the November surprise. And we've pointed them all out. And just, the relative quiet of Democrats in pushing back against them versus, for instance, the uproarious loudness with which Republicans pushed back, sometimes with what seemed at the time like ludicrous claims in the 2000 election. And they make an excellent point without reading through the entirety of the piece, though it's not that long, and I recommend it to you. They make very clear, for instance, that the pushback in 2000, not only including recruiting former Secretary of State James Baker to direct the efforts on behalf of W, but also the particular nature of the claims made in their raft of suits. Not only were they loud about it, but they were not worried about how it looked. As they put it, they were clear, consistent, and forceful with the biggest names in Republican politics working the process. Moreover, they didn't cop to the possibility that their theories might lose or look foolish in retrospect. take the theory that ultimately succeeded in the Supreme Court, there was no precedent for the idea that the Constitution's Equal Protection Clause required a uniform recount within a state. However, the Republicans pressed that theory and convinced the majority, even though the justices acknowledged that the argument was both unprecedented and not to be used again. It was a win for pure audacity. But just take that for just a second and think about it in a different context as I ask you. Was the argument that prevailed in Bush v. Gore and handed the presidency to George W. Bush not the way things work at the time? Oh, that's not the way things... you don't understand. You're making the most ridiculous argument. I mean, frankly, it's just ludicrous and stupid. I'm surprised at you for offering such an argument. You offer yourself up as such a legal scholar. How could you make such a facially idiotic, counterfactual, counter-historical assertion? Oh, wait a minute, you won? So now you're right going forward? Okay, well, fine, then I'll use that against you. Oh, I can't? It's just a one-off thing? It's just a one-time use? That's really interesting. Of course, that's been proven wrong since. People have cited it all the time, and you've done so successfully. But just interesting, bringing us back to one of the points that we make from time to time on the show, that occasionally everybody who thinks they know how things work find out that they've been wrong all along, or at least were pre-wrong, and they were warned that they were wrong by people who were then roundly mocked, usually by the other side, for not understanding how things work. That's not the way things work, which is, of course, the exact experience of, I'd say, probably the first 3 to 4 years of filibuster reform effort. That's not the way things work. You don't understand. Haven't you read a book? What's wrong with you? Well, the truth is, when you control the gavel and can construct an argument that makes the person with the gavel feel like, I don't know, it's weird, but it makes a certain amount of sense, I'm willing to rule in your favor and stand on this ground, and if I'm worried about the precedent it sets, I'll simply declare that it can't be used again, and poof, a different guy is president. So, if you're wondering, for instance, why there hasn't been much chat lately about the plan to, let's say, possibly install Merrick Garland in the Supreme Court instead of waiting for Donald Trump to come in and approve one of his crazy loons, it's not the fact that folks on the other side have declared that to be absolutely crazy and just not the way things work. That doesn't bother me. Doesn't matter. And when you control the gavel, as we will, on January 3rd, it's just out there. I'm not saying they're going to do it. We're just putting it out there as an option. Do what you will. It's fine if a guy who won by Russian espionage just gets to name the Supreme Court justice, that even if we somehow manage to remove Trump and everybody else with him, he'll leave behind to rule in his stead for the next 2 decades or whatever. Just hand it over. I'm just putting a suggestion out there on the table in case any extraordinary circumstances come up. And if somebody tells you that's not the way things work, you tell them to see me after the ruling. That's all. But you got to have the ruling. And in the meantime, it looks for all the world like we won't, and we'll just go on our merry way thinking that's just not the way things work. I guess we'll perhaps miss our opportunity for Bush v. Gore, because we don't take revenge on people, and we don't do tit for tat, and we don't do payback, even though Chris Wallace thinks we do. Just want to put that one out there. Changing subjects. Good morning, Greg. How you doing?
Maybe changing subjects.
Oh, maybe not. Okay. Is there a Connecticut River? I have to check on that.
Yeah, there's a Connecticut River. The Housatonic is the big one at this particular geographical point. But yes, there is a Connecticut River.
I figured there had to be. Sounds like a river name.
There's always a state river, right?
Yeah, right. It's everyone should have one.
Couple of comments before I forget. I want to start by noting, unfortunately, today is 12/14. It's the anniversary of the Newtown shooting. So it's never far from our thoughts, but especially a difficult day today. So just want to acknowledge that.
Yes, thank you.
A lot of my town's people, my peeps, are on buses right now on their way to a vigil at the National Cathedral in Washington for gun safety. They do that every year.
Yeah.
We are still where we are, and still a lot of work to do there. Now, you started yesterday with this great Brian Beutler article about listen, when serious people, and that's always capitalized,
right,
tell you how the real world, also capitalized, works, they're almost always wrong.
Or almost always trying desperately to stop you from changing the way it works.
Yeah, and they don't understand that other ways can be, implemented because they never have. And so it's a failure of imagination. Now, part of the problem for Democrats is that if you're making the argument that the other side is completely nuts, you don't want to look completely nuts.
Oh.
It's a failed strategy. But I see them do this all the time. We have to look reasonable because they're crazy. Yeah, but everybody knows they're crazy and voted for them anyway. That's not going to work. There's the same reason you can't make traction politically by pointing out that Trump is an a-hole. Everybody knows that. They voted for him anyway. You have to oppose him on policy. So I took your reading of the piece, which was after I got off the air yesterday, to heart, and my pundit roundup today starts out with, don't be swayed by pundit opinion of what's important. And what I wrote is, the fact is, every piece of resistance to Trump is important in delegitimizing his win. Don't complain because you don't think this is the, again, capitalized. I don't use scare quotes. I use capitalized.
That's a good move.
Is the one serious thing that serious people can get behind. It doesn't have to be successful to be part of the accumulation of doubts about Trump. He lost the popular vote. Even some of his electors won't vote for him, although some of Clinton's electors won't vote for her either. But so what? Who cares? That's not the point. The Russians meddled. Comey interfered. He has no mandate. And all of that has the advantage of being true.
Yes, it does. And I'd also just add, as he claims, an electoral college mandate, even if you don't move enough votes to unseat him somehow, and that's extraordinarily unlikely for a number of reasons. Look, when the count comes in, he'll say, I won 300 and whatever it is, but here's the count. Here's the vote. You didn't win them. That's not, that's counterfactual. Historically speaking, the votes have been cast. You didn't win these votes.
If one was less than you thought, you didn't win everybody you thought you said.
Yeah.
And everything else you say is also equally worth fact-checking.
Yes, and they should never stop that, obviously, although there's very little point. It's not true.
And you're just making a big deal of it, so let's concentrate on this. What you said wasn't true. Thank you for bringing it up.
All right.
Anyway, the Russian mischief is still in the news, but I want to focus a little bit. I don't have that much time today because I got to scoot out. I don't know if you've mentioned specifically the name Hamilton electors on the show. But that's the thing that people are gathering around. Hamilton electors are those who get to vote their conscience. And they have a website, and there's a movement and stuff like that. And I'm not disparaging it. I don't say it because I think, this is the way to stop Trump. It's not going to stop Trump, just as we were just talking about. That's not the point. But if you're looking for what they're called, that's what they're calling themselves.
Interesting.
Hamilton electors. And there's a website, and I sent you the website.
Okay.
And I also have this story from November 4th. One Washington State Democratic elector won't support Clinton, another won't commit. I don't know if that's still true, but there was a fellow, Robert Satayacom, a member of Washington's Puyallup tribe, who had supported Bernie Sanders and says, I won't vote for me. I won't vote for Clinton. I won't do it.
It's good he won't vote for
November 4th. So it's not just Trump that may have the more common term faithless electors. Clinton may have some too. Does that change the whole narrative? No. Yes. It's not about her. It's about him.
Oh, it doesn't? All right. Well, okay. I like it. Say it changes the narrative. It's fair now.
It's fair. It's reasonable.
It happens to everybody. What can you do?
Right. Now, the other way you could look at it is, you keep this stupid thing about electors. It's not going to change anything. Oh, my gosh, there's this one Clinton one that won't vote for her. Let's just, cover the heck out of that.
Well, yeah, that's true.
But, it's just not as important, so I don't really see that getting traction.
He hasn't gotten a great deal of coverage for that, I don't think. It was big in the first couple of days.
Yeah. And maybe he's changed his mind since he's watched Clinton, but you never know. There are some hardcore wackos out there who don't fully understand that I'm opposed to Trump, but I have to do what I have to do for the sake of purity because screw the country. Still a handful of them. There always will be. That's okay. That's fine. If you voted for Nader in 2000, I still don't forgive you and never will.
Oh, then there's that.
There's that.
Well, it's not going to make much of a difference at all in terms of what electoral vote Hillary Clinton ends up getting. So I guess he's free to do it. I mean, there's nothing you can do to stop
I mean, that listen, if you don't know that that's the way the world works, according to the Constitution, it is the way the world works.
Yeah, so I guess you get to do it.
So you get to do it. I have two specific stories I want to focus on today. I do have the pundit roundup, which I put there, and I have a number of different things there. But these two specific stories, for different reasons, I just think are worth really highlighting. One of them is about Brexit, but you can make your own conclusions about the United States. And the beginning of the Brexit article, which is from The Guardian, is all about how the Brexit vote promised a break with everything, and Theresa May is completely incapable of doing that, the Conservative Prime Minister. And they highlight specifically M-A-C-Q-A-R-I-E, mockery, which is a mockery, M-O-C-K-E-R-Y. I don't know the pronunciation. It's an Australian company that owns a lot of stuff in Britain.
Huh.
And the gist of the article is that a lot of the people who voted for Brexit got tired of the fact that outside forces owned their stuff.
Okay.
They resented it. And the likely result of the Brexit vote is nothing changes.
Oh.
And they go on to write, one of the canards about the referendum is that the decisive swing came from working-class voters furious at high immigration, and therefore the primary issue needs to be resolved in the next few years is who gets to stay in Britain and how. Whenever I hear that, I think of the voters I spoke to in South Wales just before the vote. True, all the leavers volunteered immigration as the main justification, but the longer we talked, in this area that remains almost exclusively white, the more it became clear they were angry at something else. Not the invisible refugees, not far-off Brussels. One Gareth Meek, that's his name, told me, I'm angry at the British government. They sold the country out. There's nothing we own anymore.
Aww.
Multitude of frustrations.
We don't win anymore.
Through a binary vote.
Uh-huh. Yes.
And I think that line well describes Trump voters. It's not one thing. No, it isn't just racism, but no, it isn't economic anxiety either. And we'll get to a fantastic Sarah Cliff article interviewing Kentucky Obamacare recipients to make that point.
Yes.
And the article concludes, what happens when Meek and his fellow voters realize that their vote for change, however loosely defined, means more of the same.
Dope.
When that call to take back control ends up with them playing the same old captive market, there to be ripped off by multinational capital, who will take the blame then? And that's a good question we have for our own country. So what's going to happen is Trump and the Republicans are finally going to own health care, and they are the dog that caught the car. Now what? This is a piece in box. It's just stunning. It's not surprising. There's nothing in here you don't know, but it's still stunning nonetheless. Why Obamacare enrollees voted for Trump?
Why?
In Kentucky.
Explained.
Because they see what they believe. They don't believe what they see. The short, abbreviated pundit version of this is they heard everything Obama and Republicans said about getting rid of Obamacare, and they fully understand the connect is Obamacare and the idea of, if we don't call it that, nobody will catch on. Everybody understands and knows this. They think it doesn't matter because it's just so important to their lives that there's no way Republicans will get rid of it.
Yes, because they're good at one thing Republicans do is deliver things that are important to
They're
poor people.
thinking of Republicans. They're thinking of themselves. It's just too important. Nobody could possibly get rid of it. It's just too big. It's just too important. They would die without it. And so, of course, they won't. And so they're willing to believe that even though they said they would, they won't. And about all the other stuff, they're willing to believe anything that they said. And there's just some fascinating quotes in here. It starts with a woman, Kathy Aller, who actually signs people up for Obamacare. She's passionate about it. And she voted for Trump.
That's smart.
I found with Trump, he says a lot of stuff. I just think all politicians promise you everything, and then we'll see. It's like when you get married. Oh, honey, I won't do this. Oh, honey, I won't do that.
Uh-oh.
Right? Now this is important because I think this is true. Many expressed frustration that Obamacare plans cost way too much. The premiums and the deductibles had spiraled out of control. And part of their anger was wrapped up in the idea that other people were getting even better, even cheaper benefits, and those other people didn't deserve the help. Now, you can look at that and say, see the racism? The other people are all black and we're all white. That's not exactly what it is. I know that from my own experience here in Connecticut. When I hear people of color who are making working poor a little bit too, or working class, if you will, who are making too much to be on Medicaid.
Uh-huh.
who have to go through the exchanges.
Yes.
This may be their, shall we say, independent contractors.
Okay.
Doesn't that sound better than day laborers?
Yeah.
And so they don't have company insurance. And they're American citizens, are entitled to, apply. And their premiums are high, and their deductibles are high. And when I say high, I mean higher than they can or are willing to afford.
Yes.
So it's frustrating for them. And then they turn around and see somebody making maybe $5,000 less than them a year, and they're on Medicaid and get much better benefits. And it's very frustrating. And why does that exist? Because it's not a feature, it is a bug. And that was one of the big flaws in Obamacare from the beginning. The problem was that you couldn't find any support in Congress to fix that with either better subsidies, a single-payer system, or some other way that somebody could come up with that would preserve current insurance companies as they were. At the same time, with those more expensive benefits, you actually get much, much better coverage, which people don't appreciate because they didn't have the coverage before. So it's not that you lost your insurance and now you have to pay more to get more. It's you had nothing, but you paid nothing. And now you're looking to see what it's going to cost you, and you'd rather not have it because you can't afford the benefits, you can't afford the premiums, and you can't afford the deductibles. And it turns out that if you get sick, you're screwed because you had the opportunity to sign up and you didn't, but you don't qualify for Medicaid. And so there is that gap, and that is one of the big problems. And when I hear people of color tell me this, Latinos, African Americans, and others, and express the same anger about people who are getting benefits because they are in a different and even slightly different tax bracket, if you will, and same block, same town, same community. These are their friends, and they get very angry. So I don't think all the anger is racism. I think it's anger at how the system works, and they felt that was unjust, and therefore they wanted the system changed. And here's where it gets weird. So instead of saying, okay, let's vote for the people who recognize that it's a problem and are committed to working to make the system better, instead we'll blow it up because what could go wrong? And the article goes on to say there was a persistent belief that Trump would fix these problems and make Obamacare work better. I kept hearing informed voters who had watched the election closely say they did hear the promise of repeal, but simply felt Trump couldn't repeal the law that has done so much good for them. In fact, some of the people I talked to hoped that one of the more divisive pieces of the law, Medicaid expansion, might become even more robust.
Yeah, sure.
Right?
Face-eating leopards. Right.
The political reality, of course, is different. And in southeastern Kentucky, the idea didn't seem to penetrate that Republicans want to get rid of this. We all need it. You can't get rid of it, they said. So she talked to some of them, Sarah Cliff, the author, and got a lot of these responses. And before I went to Kentucky, she said, I did about half a dozen interviews with experts on why the state had voted so resoundingly for politicians who wanted to dismantle Obamacare. I kept hearing the same theory over and over. Kentuckians didn't understand what they signed up for was part of Obamacare. If they had, they would have voted to save the law. Not true.
Wow.
Absolutely not true.
Yeah, I don't think so. Although that's an interesting thesis, and it would reverse our thinking about the brilliance of the Connect play, but no, I don't think so.
And so this is a story I heard a lot, she said, but it was not the one that fit the Obamacare enrollees I met. All but one knew full well the coverage was part of Obamacare. They voted for Trump because they were too concerned about other ideas, and they couldn't fathom the idea that this new coverage would be taken away from them. I guess I thought, he wouldn't do this. He wouldn't take health insurance away knowing it would affect so many people's lives, said Debbie Mills, an Obamacare enrollee who supported Trump. What are you going to do then if you can't pay for insurance? Mills and her husband run a furniture store. They used to buy their own health insurance. Premiums became unaffordable, so they stopped getting coverage, and then the Affordable Care Act came along, and it's made it affordable. This year, she received generous tax credits and paid a $115 monthly premium for a plan that covered herself, her husband, and her 19-year-old son. Earlier this year, Mrs. Husband was diagnosed with non-alcoholic cirrhosis of the liver. He's on the waiting list for a liver transplant, and Obamacare's coverage is vital for their lives. And, of course, who did she vote for? Donald Trump.
Oh.
We want to change, she said. We're in an area with a lot of coal. When people aren't in the coal mines, they're not spending and buying in our area. She said Trump's a successful businessman, have a better shot at fixing that. This whole concept that businessmen know what they're doing remains bizarre. And, frankly, the Democratic Party has never pushed hard enough back against that. And that's the whole thing we were talking about the other day about, well, the coal miners work at mines for people who basically ignore them, kill them, and otherwise slow poison them. But at least it's a job, you know. I asked her if she had followed the campaign and heard the candidates talk about repealing Obamacare. I did. It's the only thing I didn't like about them.
Only one thing.
And this was the conversation that followed, beginning with another question that Sarah Cliff asked. Sarah Cliff, are you surprised how much Republicans are talking about repeal? No. Did you expect? Did you think they'll do it? Do you think it'll be too hard? I'm hoping they don't.
Yeah, well.
If they do, she said to Sarah Cliff, would this go away? And Cliff says, yeah, possibly. The insurance? Well, it'll go if they repeal it. That's what they promised to do in so many elections. Well, I don't know now.
Yeah, well. And call your electors.
You just want to hit your head against the wall. What is going on here?
Well, I want to hit their heads against the wall.
Right. This isn't racism. And it's not stupidity, but it sure is ignorance. And, is it the schools? Because the schools don't actually teach us civics anymore and people haven't a clue as to how the government actually works? Probably.
Well, that's not the way things work.
That has been fed into by the Republicans blocking everything. Do they blame the Republican legislature in Kentucky? No. Do they blame Bevin, the governor, for trying to take a lot of this stuff away? Apparently not. I don't understand it, and it's not economic anxiety. And it isn't because the Democrats didn't pay attention to the white working class. That's bullshit.
Hey-o.
Something else is going on here, and it's pretty complex, and it's not so clear as to what it is.
Well, look, these colors don't run USA.
Yeah, something like that.
I've just explained it.
And then there's another fellow says, the Kentucky voters I spoke with constantly mentioned change as a reason they supported Trump. The man is a head for business. He'll do his best to change things. But the original person, Kathy Oler, who's the person who signs everybody up for this, but voted for Trump anyway, says, I know I took a leap of faith with Trump. She had so many words.
Good to acknowledge.
Right? She says, quote, it was Russian roulette, but I felt we needed change. And so, go back to that Brexit article.
What kind of roulette?
Russian roulette.
Oh. Damn, they're in everything.
They are.
We don't even own our own roulette anymore. We don't win anymore.
So you go back to the Brexit thing.
Yeah.
And you say, okay, so who's going to own this when it all goes sour? I mean, Trump is certainly going to bring change to Obamacare that Sarah Cliff writes in the article and gives another case, And the one originally who was shocked about the fact that the insurance might disappear, Debbie Mills and I spoke for about an hour about Obamacare. By the end of the conversation, it moved from me interviewing her to her asking about what might change and whether the coverage she would sign up for in a few minutes would still be valid.
Yes.
I ended up reassuring Mills that nothing would change for 2017, but it wasn't guaranteed. I didn't know what would happen either. And our interview began to make her a little nervous. You're scaring me now on the insurance part. I'm afraid now the insurance is going to go away and we're going to be up a creek.
Oh, no.
Hello?
That's terrible.
It is, and it is what might happen, and it is how they might feel. So for 2018, this is something I think the Democrats have to pound, start working the message now so it's crystal clear, make it simple, make it easy. It's got nothing to do with Hillary Clinton, all you Clinton haters out there. But the fact of the matter is, I still do not understand how these voters voted the way they did. Just don't get it.
I don't know. Maybe they weren't listening.
But they knew so much.
Well,
to be listening. Sure. They just didn't believe it. And so I'm left with the old, you see what you believe, you don't believe what you see. I mean, this is a perfect example. It couldn't be better spelled out than this piece.
Yeah, and it's not new, and they have. I'm pretty sure we've seen this same thing before, and in Kentucky, is this not the third or fourth time they've gone to Kentucky and said, "What are you doing?" I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, they're not really going to appeal. You elected a governor who said he was going to repeal it. Well, they're not going to do it at the federal level. He can't. Well, you just elected people, and you continue to elect people to Congress who say that's what they want to do. Yeah, but I don't believe him. Well, but what about Hillary's emails? I believe that.
Yeah, I guess.
And I got this fake news stuff on Facebook. I believe that. But I don't believe the actual quotes that I know they actually said. I don't believe it. I don't want to believe it.
Yeah. Well,
okay, sorry.
Maybe
don't
they
feel
think
sorry for you. I'm trying to understand you. But what the hell did you do?
Yeah. Well, what they did was they told us what they did. Well, that was the one issue I disagreed with them on. It was all the other ones I was okay with, and so I don't know whether they.
Even though it's the most important one to me.
Yeah. Well, so what? Anyway, the point is, I mean, maybe they think that people that they kick out of bathrooms can be shaken down for money to use to pay for insurance. Maybe they think that if police can shoot black people in the street, they can take their wallet and give the money to white people for insurance. I don't know.
Oh, but I don't know. There's just something about Hillary I can't put my finger on.
It's economic anxiety.
Maybe it's her gender.
That could be it. And the emails, we should have, instead of having her delete them, we should have been able to sell them on eBay for money to pay for insurance. That's why it comes down to economic anxiety, just like I was told.
Mm. So, there you have it. The Russian story is still big. Police and Politico. There's stuff on the Washington Post. There's stuff on the New York Times. But that's my summary for today. Some housekeeping stuff. Won't be here Friday.
Oh, okay.
And I can't be here tomorrow.
So that's it.
That's it.
Okay. Just
fire
it's
me.
Not that I'm not going to be here from this point on. It's just that I won't be here tomorrow or after
it's just
that.
Starting, by the way.
Okay.
Things just get a little rocky.
Yeah. Well, kids get sick.
I got this day job, in other words.
Okay.
Still have to do this.
Well, and you better cure people up while they have insurance.
Well, exactly. So we only have a limited time to make everybody better and make things right. And then January 20th comes, and then we go on from there. Okay. So this is Greg Dworkin speaking with my friend David Waldman Kagro in the morning. Little food for thought. More pieces over at the Pundit Roundup if you want to take a look at them. Some are about healthcare. I had a really interesting back and forth with David Byler from RCP about Comey and the election the other day, and it was at the end of yesterday's roundup. I didn't make it into a full storify, but but he said he got great feedback from William Jordan, who runs the YouGov reporting side of things, myself, Isaac Bailey, who's African American reporter from the Atlanta area, who's terrific. Basically, Comey hurt Clinton in a race that was already competitive, and that's why Comey made so much of a big difference. So what he originally said is, I think a reasonable person could make a good case that Comey flipped the election. But it's important to remember it wasn't the only thing. It was a close election, and close elections are often overdetermined. That is to say, you can always point to something and say it's this, when in fact it was a variety of things.
Sure.
So, certain people will forget that Trump lost the popular vote, claim the GOP is a permanent majority. Some people will claim Democrats have an invincible majority. In 2016 was just Comey. None of that's true. It wasn't a landslide, and events helped them win a very losable election. And it's important for Democrats to not forget they had deeper problems aside from Comey that made a race close in the first place. Nobody denies that the race was close, and it was close for a variety of reasons that are important. But go back to the original point, Comey flipped the election, and that's still true. So it's one of those things that serious, important people, don't get distracted by it. It was a big frickin' deal. And, yeah, you need to make a big deal about it still, and that goes back to our original beginning of the segment discussion about what very serious people say usually is, wrong.
Yes.
All right, I'll leave you with that, and I'll talk to you then on Monday.
Okay. Well, yeah, I guess have a good weekend well in advance.
Not exactly a vacation,
hard.
But, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, well, work hard and get kids well, and then take the weekend off if you can.
All right. Yeah, play golf.
Yeah.
In 0-degree weather, which is what it's going to be on Friday and Saturday here. Take care, and I'll talk to you.
Thank you. Thanks very much for starting us off, Greg. Appreciate it. Not that it stopped you stopped Armando from yelling at you in the background on Twitter, which is one of the more effective places to yell at either of us while we're on the air. But I think, Armando wanted to kind of cut through, and I think Greg wanted to be a little kinder and saying, gee whiz, I don't know why it is that people who think this way about something so important to them would vote the way they do. But of course, I think beneath it all, we all know Armando is just more interested in coming out and saying it. And I don't know, hey, Armando, if you want to take a few minutes to go ahead and do it in your own unique voice, or whether I should just read your tweets about it, but you're certainly welcome to knock on the door and we'll let you in. In case you don't have the time for it, we'll just simply say, okay, yeah, the idea of, I guess pulling a quote from the article here is, quote, I'm really having a problem with the people that don't want to work. And I think we all know what people in Kentucky who might say such a thing are thinking when they say it. And they're the ones getting the welfare and food stamps. I'm the one who is the working poor. Us middle-class people are really upset about having to work constantly, and then these people are not responsible. Well, it wasn't particularly responsible of you to vote the way you did, but you did, and you're a super patriot for doing it, I'm sure. Meanwhile, of course, they're actually blaming it all on you-know-who, those people, once again, who are getting all this help. But you know what? I'm upset that every time I get on an airplane, everybody has paid less than me for their ticket. But I don't bomb the plane. I just say, I got to get where I'm going. This sucks. I wish I had gotten the good price that guy got or that guy got, or maybe that guy over there paid more than me. But right, I mean, the idea of hijacking the thing and taking it down, I have no interest in something like that. I'd like to survive and make it to the other end of my flight. Armando says he hasn't got Skype hooked up on the computer that he's on, or on the phone that he's got. So he says, I'll have to figure out the tech and make it work at some point. Are you working on some kind of primitive phone, not one that you could add Skype app to? Well, even if you have your regular smartphone with you, who wants to spend the time setting up Skype on a phone just to get in here and say, yeah, you do know why they voted for him? Because we do. You're right. Well, point well taken. Definitely true. And it's a kind thing to do, I guess, to say, gee whiz, I don't understand their vote, but we understand their vote. Okay, it's just not in the article, and we're sticking to the text here. Let's see. A couple of comments that have come in along the way. Parlio, one, has a suggestion for a great article for the show. Perhaps we'll pull that one up as well. Is that in the New York Review of Books? Is that what NY Books is? Most likely. And commenting on the Brexit mention, Brexit is unusual as the dividing line crosses party lines. So who knows who will take any future electoral hit. That's true and well worth observing in terms of making parallels between the Brexit vote and our vote for, directly for our chief executive. Well, I guess not directly. We're running it through the Electoral College. If it was a direct vote for our chief executive, we wouldn't have this problem, among many others that we likely wouldn't have either. Okay, so well worth pointing out. Also true. Let me see. There's other issues kind of cropping up along the way. Let me just quickly go back to the Flynn article. The Trump's national security advisor shared secrets without permission files show, written by Craig Whitlock and Greg Miller. Just to get you up to date on what Flynn's doing these days. His son, right, remember, ostensibly booted from the transition, but then again, we learned, or we discussed briefly yesterday, that's a play that the Trump team has run a couple times already. Corey Lewandowski, he's out, except he's not out. Paul Manafort, he's out, except he's not out. Mike Flynn Jr., he's out. Is he? I don't know. You tell me. Anyway, Mike Flynn Sr.'s story runs like this morning in the Washington Post. A secret U.S. military investigation in 2010, so secret that I'm reading to now, determined that Michael T. Flynn, the retired Army general tapped to serve as National Security Advisor in the Trump White House, and again, it's not subject to Senate approval, inappropriately shared classified information with foreign military officers in Afghanistan. Newly released documents show. No doubt he did this with allied militaries, but, one, he wasn't supposed to, and two, that's just a dumb rule, and how are we supposed to coordinate our fight with these guys if they don't have the right information? So I'm just going to go around the rules because I'm such a genius. I know exactly what I'm doing, and just get out of my way and I'll be super effective. Pizzagate. Hashtag Pizzagate. I know what I'm doing. Although Flynn lacked authorization to share the classified material, he decided, F you, I'm so smart, I'm going to do it anyway. He was not also, by the way, he was not disciplined or reprimanded after the investigation concluded. So that's got to suck. That's not going to help anything. But let me get back to the reading here. Although he lacked the authorization, he wasn't disciplined or reprimanded. After this investigation concluded that he did not act knowingly and that there was no actual or potential damage to national security as a result, which is a nice, convenient excuse for not doing anything about it. It's tough to discipline your generals. That, according to Army records obtained by the Washington Post under the Freedom of Information Act, Flynn has previously acknowledged that he was investigated while serving as the U.S. military intelligence chief in Afghanistan for sharing secrets with British and Australian allies there. But he has dismissed the case as insignificant and has given few details. I won't tell you much about it except that it's insignificant, so go away. The Army documents provide the first official account of the case, but they are limited in scope because the investigation itself remains classified. Former U.S. officials familiar with the matter said that Flynn was accused of telling allies about the activities of other agencies in Afghanistan, including the CIA. The Army files call into question Flynn's prior assertion that he had permission to share the sensitive information. It doesn't call it into question. It says, no, you didn't. During the presidential race, Flynn campaigned vigorously for Republican nominee Donald Trump and drew attention for his scolding attacks against Democratic opponent Hillary Clinton for mishandling classified material. What? Clinton was investigated by the FBI for allowing classified information to be transmitted on her private email server when she ran the State Department. No charges filed against her, but the issue dogged her for more than a year. At the Republican National Convention in July, Flynn called on Clinton to drop out of the race for putting our nation's security at extremely high risk with her careless use of a private email server. He egged on the partisan crowd in chants of lock her up, which Trump again yesterday had to try to pretend he wanted to tamp down on. And he added, if I, a guy who knows this business, if I did a tenth of what she did, I would be in jail today. He, of course, did about 150% of what she did, and he's not in jail today. He's going to be the National Security Advisor. Flynn did not respond to requests for comment, then or now. The Office of the Army's Judge Advocate General released a 4-page summary of the investigation into Flynn in response to the Post's FOIA request for records of any misconduct allegations involving the retired 3-star general. The U.S. military opened the investigation into Flynn in 2010 after receiving a complaint from an unnamed Navy intelligence specialist, according to the documents. The intelligence officer charged that Flynn violated rules by inappropriately sharing secrets with various foreign military officers and or officials in Afghanistan. The documents do not reveal the nature of the information, but former U.S. officials familiar with the case said it centered on slides and other materials containing classified information about CIA operations in Afghanistan. It was a general intelligence briefing that included stuff that shouldn't have been on those slides, said a former U.S. intelligence official who, like others, spoke on the condition of anonymity, citing the sensitivity of the subject. The disclosures revealed stuff the intelligence community was doing that had a much higher level of classification. Oh, whoops! It was marked with a C. The agency has had an extensive presence in it says in the Afghanistan. Well, that's a mistake. Since the September 2011, September 11th, 2001 attacks. You'd think that would be automatic by now. Beyond gathering intelligence on Al-Qaeda and the Taliban, the CIA has also assembled its own paramilitary networks in the country, paying warlords for cooperation and funding armed groups known as counterterrorism pursuit teams. It's the new name for a mujahideen. A second former U.S. official said Flynn failed to secure permission to reveal those secrets. This was a question of whether or not information was put through proper channels before it was shared. The second official said he don't care, obviously. The episode marked the second time in a year that Flynn had drawn official complaints for handling classified material. Former U.S. officials said that Flynn had disclosed sensitive information to Pakistan in late 2009 or early 2010 about secret U.S. intelligence capabilities being used to monitor the Haqqani network, an insurgent group accused of repeated attacks on U.S. forces in Afghanistan. Flynn exposed the capabilities during meetings with Pakistani officials in Islamabad. The former U.S. intelligence official said that a CIA officer who accompanied Flynn reported the disclosures to CIA headquarters, which then relayed the complaint to the Defense Department. Flynn was verbally reprimanded by the Pentagon's top intelligence official at the time, James R. Clapper, Jr. Anyone know what he's doing these days? Clapper subsequently became Director of National Intelligence and endorsed Flynn to become his successor as DNI. In 2014, however, Clapper forced Flynn out of that job over concerns with his temperament and management. The newly disclosed Army documents state that the 2010 investigation was ordered by the head of U.S. Central Command, which oversees military operations in the Middle East and Afghanistan. Although the records do not say exactly when the case was opened, the commander at the time would have been Marine General James Mattis, whose names we're hearing over and over and over again. My goodness gracious. Guys who knew are going to be in a position to say, Mr. Trump, this really just doesn't make any goddamn sense whatsoever. But they're not. Mattis took charge at Central Command's headquarters in Tampa, Florida in August 2010. 1 month later, Flynn was ordered back to Washington from Afghanistan. He was assigned to a temporary job at the Pentagon as the special assistant to the Army's chief of intelligence while the investigation unfolded. Records show. Did they get to this story about the internet? Is this when it happens? They bring him back and they still manage to get an internet connection in that guy's office? Mattis was nominated this month by Trump to serve as Secretary of Defense. In that role, Mattis will work closely with Flynn. The retired generals are expected to be the most influential voices on national security in the Trump administration. And one of them's a spy. Don't tell anybody. The Army documents that summarize the investigation into Flynn do not specify which countries he was accused of improperly sharing secrets with. In an interview with the Post in August, Flynn said he was scrutinized for giving classified information to British and Australian officials serving in Afghanistan alongside U.S. forces. In that interview, Flynn defended his actions and said he did nothing wrong. That was substantiated because I actually did it, but I did it with the right permissions when you dig into that investigation. I'm proud of that one. Accuse me of sharing intelligence in combat with our closest allies, please. All right, I will. You did it. The Army documents, however, state explicitly that the Central Command investigation determined that Flynn did not have permission to share the particular secrets he divulged. The Defense Department's Inspector General, which conducted an independent review of the investigation, came to the same conclusion the documents show. It is routine for the U.S. military to share intelligence in Afghanistan with NATO allies, such as Britain, as well as other members of the broader international coalition fighting the Taliban and Al-Qaeda, including Australia. But for whatever reason, some crazy, stupid, bureaucratic reason, there are established mechanisms and guidelines that must be followed. Must be followed. But weren't. But here's a higher job. Flynn was highly regarded within the Army for the key role he played in shaping U.S. counterterrorism strategy in Iraq and Afghanistan, which has been wonderful. Pentagon officials had intended to promote Flynn in 2010 to the rank of Lieutenant General and to make him Assistant Director of National Intelligence, a job that would place him in charge of improving ties with foreign intelligence agencies. By the way, can I just pause for a second here to say that the whole campaign, Trump kept saying, we don't know what we're doing. Our country has no clue. We can't defeat ISIS. President Obama, he's the founder of ISIS. It's getting so much worse. They're attacking us everywhere. We don't win anymore. So who's he hiring? All the generals who ran this program that doesn't win anymore. But my generals, as he calls them now, they're going to fix it. By the way, has anybody seen Trump ask them to start on the 30-day clock for their plan to defeat ISIS? Because I noticed that they're asking for the names of climate scientists and trying to root them out of the EPA. Yeah, that's another story we got to get to. And he's fighting with local union officials in Indianapolis. And he's got time to meet, of course, with Kanye West, et cetera, et cetera. But what happened to, I'm going to tell my generals to have a plan on my desk in 30 days to defeat ISIS. That's how we're going to do it. I mean, I know he said he would wait, that on day one he would ask for the plan, and then we'd have to wait 30 days. But we know who all the generals are now. Couldn't we get that plan started sooner? Because it's only ISIS, which is apparently a huge deal, until you get elected, in which case, at that point, whatever. Let's talk about what color the carpet should be in my office. And get me Kanye West, damn it. All right. Flynn was, as we said, highly regarded, right? And where did we leave off? Oh, yes, right. He was going to be promoted to lieutenant general and made assistant director of national intelligence, which seemed like a great move after having recalled him from Afghanistan for giving away all the intelligence. The Central Command investigation delayed his career advancement for a full year. Boo-hoo. He received his promotion and a new assignment in September 2011. After being forced to retire from the military in 2014, Flynn became a vocal opponent of the Obama administration's policies regarding Iran and al-Qaeda. At the same time, he gained a reputation for floating conspiracy theories on Twitter. Some Democratic lawmakers have criticized his selection as Trump's national security advisor. Have they really? Gosh. The position is not subject to Senate confirmation. So I guess in that sense, you wouldn't expect to hear a great deal about him from senators. But now I have to look up where's the article that had him, that was discussing him and his internet connection. I'll just Google it now and see if I can't find that one. Here we are. Let's see. Who do you want to look for? There was the disruptive career of Michael Flynn, Trump's national security advisor, in the New Yorker. We definitely looked at that. Well, here's a Daily Kos post about it. We might as well start there and then see what the source of that one was. This one poses it as a Fox News ? Issue. Did Trump cabinet pick Michael Flynn have a, quote, forbidden internet connection at the Pentagon? Voracious is the diarist here. And let's see. Business Insider, then, I guess, was the source that he used for this one. They had a story up alleging that he had this illegal internet connection. Retired Lieutenant General Michael Flynn installed a secret internet connection into his office at the Pentagon, even though it was forbidden, according to a profile in the New Yorker. So his source, the Voracious' source, is the Business Insider. Business Insider source is the New Yorker article by Dana Priest. Is that the that's the one we just mentioned, the disruptive career of Trump's national security advisor. Okay. Anyway, it goes on to cite or to quote, it's also possible that Flynn's Pentagon office was known as a SCIF, or Sensitive Compartmented Information Facility, a secure facility in which intelligence can be discussed without fear of it being compromised. Network connections in SCIFs are closely controlled, and outside electronics such as mobile phones are not allowed inside. If his office was an SCIF, then that would be really bad, the DIA analyst said, but there are so many unknowns. The story links to a profile in the New Yorker that Voracious says is also worth checking out. I see by my Google display that it's in the Google search, that article's title is purple, meaning I've clicked on it in the past, so I guess we've talked about it. Here's another photo of him in the golden elevator. I feel pretty certain we've brought this one up. Maybe we've included it as a link in roundups in the past, but I don't believe we read through the entirety of it. It must just be that we were using it for the reference to the internet connection story. Now, I'm going to try and scroll down here and find it and see if it puts a time frame on there. Because I don't see, I'm still scrolling, trying to find the part of the story that deals with the internet connection, and I don't even see it. But yet that was put forth as a quote in the diary. So, well, it's always pays to check your sources. This is really strange that I wouldn't see this right away. Concerns me a little bit. Well, okay. I mean, is it it must be in the Business Insider one, right? Let's take a look at that. Interesting. So, and yet the Business Insider is pointing to the New Yorker. Well, let's just take a look. We'll retrace our steps here. It's important to do that and have things right. So here's the Business Insider piece. That one, I just clicked on that. Continue to Business Insider. All right, I will. Click, and it brings me back to the same page. I mean, I wonder if it's going to let me through. It says I'll be redirected in seconds. Oh, they're complaining about the ad blocker. Oh. All right. Well, here's what we'll do. For right now, I think if I just save the article to Pocket, I'll be able to bring up the Pocket view of it that way, and I'll deal with the ad blocker later. All right, so let's see. It starts out right up at the top by saying he installed a secret internet connection into his office at the Pentagon, even though it was, quote, forbidden, according to a profile in the New Yorker by Dana Priest. The network connection was, among other rules, the former chief of the DIA broke because he found them to be, quote, stupid, including sometimes sneaking out of a CIA station in Iraq without authorization and sharing classified information with NATO allies without approval, according to the New Yorker. So the New Yorker article allegedly makes both accusations, and yet every time I open the New Yorker article, I mean, am I skimming wrong? Let's see. I mean, I'll do it again and take a look through here. I'm doing my best to skim slowly, and I don't know. It's got to be in here, right? I mean, you wouldn't just link to it and have it not be in there, right? Oh, my God. All right, here we go. I found it. It's just a casual mention. Flynn broke the rules he thought were stupid. He once told me about a period he spent assigned to a CIA station in Iraq when he would sometimes sneak out of the compound without the, quote, insane, required approval from CIA headquarters in Langley, Virginia. He had technicians secretly install an internet connection in his Pentagon office, even though it was forbidden. That was also the time he gave classified information to NATO allies without approval, an incident which prompted an investigation and a warning from superiors. During his stint as Mullins intelligence chief, Flynn would often write, "This is BS." In the margins, he used the real word, in the margins of classified papers he was obliged to pass on to his boss. Someone who saw these papers told me. So anyway, there's plenty more about him in terms of profile, but it doesn't put a date on that internet connection either, so that doesn't exactly nail it down, but at least we found the reference to it. I was getting worried there for a second. All right. Yes, many other stories that we haven't yet gotten to, including this one, and this one really should be on the radar. I don't have much to add to this because there's not much known about it, but I did see it fly by the other day, and good call here. Mark, my brother Mark, sends me this tweet, much discussed yesterday from Christopher Boozy, Bouzy, who is somebody. I don't know who. I'm trying to open up his Twitter bio to see if I can figure it out. Political enthusiast, software engineer, tech guru, and the guy who always has an idea. Well, he had an idea here, and the idea is a good one. Someone ought to have a look at it. He just noting, someone started dumping Lockheed Martin stock just before Trump's tweet from the other day bashing Lockheed Martin for their F-35 program. Can someone else please verify my findings? I can't, but there's certainly a chart that purports to be pointing out a big dive in stock price for Lockheed Martin. But again, I mean, he's got a screen cap here that I'm sure if you have access to this kind of website will tell you whether or not we'll show you a chart, and I guess if it looks like this on the date in question, December 12th, and the time period in question, 8:20 a.m. up to 8:26 a.m., which is the time stamp. If that's, I don't know how, I guess forensically speaking, how accurate is a time stamp on a Twitter account of any kind? I guess that's done centrally, and I guess it's relatively reliable. 8:26 tweet from Donald Trump on the 12th of December saying the F-35 program and cost is out of control. Billions of dollars can and will be saved on the military and other purchases after January 20th, obviously hinting at the fact that he still believes he'll be elected president by the Electoral College and installed as president, and he'll do something about this madness. But just for the record, what is purportedly shown in this chart here, beginning at 8:20, 6 minutes before Trump's tweet, a $260 per share price suddenly drops off a cliff. Well, in stock terms anyway. I don't know. I guess it also depends what scale you use for the chart. But there's a pretty precipitous drop in what looks to be, for the few minutes prior to 8:20, a pretty steady stock price, which is to be expected at 8:20 in the morning for a major blue chip, right? But so about 260, and then at 8:25 a.m., 1 minute before Trump's tweet, it has dropped to 255 and still dropping. Around 8:26, when the tweet comes out, we're down to about 253 per share. Which, I guess in the grand scheme of things, if you own one share, you've lost, $7 a share, which is not horrific. But of course, if you own millions of shares, well, that just sucks. Anyway, then he tweets that the incoming president thinks Lockheed Martin's major contract is crap, and he wants to do something about it. For the minute or so following, stock price flickers, within tolerances, but then drops again down to a little bit below 250, so maybe about 240, 247, 248, and flickers around there for the rest of the day. So a pretty significant drop in stock price, triggered by Trump's own tweet. But weirdly, I understand, everybody would understand the drop from 253 down to 248, let's say, because of the tweet. Everybody's complaining about how he, puts a ding in stock prices with tweets like that. It would be important, of course, to know whether anybody who had any idea that he was about to do exactly that to Lockheed Martin, were they out there starting at 8:20, selling off their stocks at the 260 price, knowing that everybody was going to get stuck with them at 247 by the end of the day? I don't know. You tell me. Just another one of the many conflicts of interest that, is a pretty serious one, but which everybody seems perfectly willing to excuse for some reason. We don't know why. We don't know why they voted for them. We don't know why they're overlooking foreign emoluments. We don't know why we're overlooking foreign interference. We don't know why we're overlooking profiteering with inside information. Although I don't even know whether that covers inside information. I mean, I guess at some point you get used to the idea that, yeah, I can affect stock prices with a tweet. Certainly if someone was doing it as a day trader and out there trashing a certain stock on trader bulletin boards and had been dumping it prior to that, well, they've got rules about that as well. Anyway, hey, who knows? Besides, isn't that why we elected him? He's got such a great head for business. Hooray. It's fantastic. We have lots to look forward to for putting a businessman in charge of the White House. All right. Well, that has been burning up the wires this morning as well. And let's check into the other things that we have put away in pocket for us to thumb through for the rest of the day. Let's see. We got anything? Let's look for some stuff that would help us make a nice segue to talking to Joan. That might be helpful. Let's see. Well, here's something. Sort of a segue. I picked this one up this morning from Huffington Post. It won't make a great deal of difference in the long run, but another piece of the puzzle, just so you know what sorts of chicanery the Republicans are up to. I'll have to stop the autoplaying video because it's Huffington Post. Christina Wilkie and Paul Blumenthal co-byline this one. This GOP-backed law forbids Donald Trump from using the presidency for personal profit. Well, he ain't in the presidency yet, of course. Oh, and wasn't that the news of the other day, too? His new announcement in saying he was going to postpone his big press conference about how he would resolve his conflicts of interest and who would be running the business going forward. In addition to saying that, A, I'm not going to tell you right now, but B, nothing's going to change. He added, C, don't worry about it because come January 20th, I won't do any more deals. There won't be any more new Trump organization deals. So that way we will avoid conflicts of interest, which is, of course, far too broad a brush to be using when you're talking about something like this. Even if you believe him that he would not pursue new deals post January 20th, I don't think there's any real reason to believe that. I assume that for a while they'll just continue to do them, but continue to insist, well, this isn't a new deal, it's a renegotiation of an old deal, which of course is now being renegotiated with me as president, which provides a little bit of extra leverage. And golly, all my old deals are now so much more profitable. Luckily, none of them are new ones because I promised that there wouldn't be any new ones until a really, really good new one gets put on the table. It's just too lucrative to pass up, at which point you take it, and then everybody says, you said no new deals. And at some point when it just becomes too ridiculous to pretend it's really an old deal being renegotiated, you just say, yeah, I know. I said that, but I said I wouldn't make any new deals. Eric made this deal. No, you said there wouldn't be any new deals at all. Well, ultimately, what are you going to do about it? Well, this law says you're not allowed to. Well, what does it say? Let's read it. Okay, let's read it. President-elect Donald Trump's business empire, they say in Huffington Post, represents an unprecedented source of conflicts of interest between his presidential duties and the hundreds of private companies he controls. Remember, that doesn't mean he controls hundreds of companies that do hundreds of different things. In many cases, there are several dozen that do the exact same thing. All they do is pass money to one another so that he gets taxed less on it. It's not like he's at the head of an empire with thousands of different products on the market. It's just thousands of different iterations of the same crap. Anyway, as we said, his business empire represents an unprecedented source of conflicts of interest between his presidential duties and the hundreds of private companies he controls, which he has said he will not sell and will leave to his sons to run. Luckily for Trump, the President of the United States is exempt from most of the conflict of interest rules that govern other federal employees. In theory, I can be President of the United States and run my business 100%, whatever that means, bragged Trump to the New York Times in November. But a 2012 law called the Stock Act could throw a wrench in Trump's plan. No, not really. A section of that law states that, quote, no executive branch employee may use non-public information derived from or acquired through their position as an executive branch employee as a means for making a private profit. By the way, one, they'd never do anything about it. Two, there's probably no provisions for prosecuting a president who does that. And three, most of the stuff, I mean, if, for instance, if he were shorting Lockheed Martin stock, if that's the right term for it, before tweeting his opinion that the F-35 contract was garbage, I'm not certain. I mean, what's the inside information here? The inside information, as it happens, is the knowledge of the timing of the tweet. But, I mean, ultimately he'll end up, were he to face, prosecutors in court about it, he would say, it's not inside information. I happen to think, as a private individual, that the contract isn't being lived up to, and that Lockheed Martin isn't a really particularly good contractor, and I said so, and I have to be free to say so, and I don't control anything right now. And at the moment, he doesn't. It's true. Anyway, you can see how there will be conflicts with dealing with these conflicts in the coming months. At any rate, I'll put out there that ostensibly there is a law out there, and it could be somewhat politically embarrassing because Republicans argued strenuously for coverage specifically of the president and vice president in this law, which might otherwise have exempted them because, of course, at the time, 2012, they would have been angry and upset that members of Congress would be forbidden from using insider information to profit from securities deals, but not the president, whom they hated. He was, of course, President Obama, and they were furious that they might be exempted from it, so they fought hard to make sure that they were covered. And now the president who would be covered would be their own Donald Trump, and the vice president their own Mike Pence. However, I'll take a stab in the dark here and say, one, that there isn't much in the way of legal remedies probably written into the Stock Act, and two, if the federal government were for some strange reason just not particularly interested in prosecuting either the president or vice president or any other Republican for doing exactly that, I don't know what you think you'd do about it. You'd cry, you'd complain, you'd write to your congressman and say, this is hypocrisy. And they would say, you're right, it is. And then that would be the end of it. And you would be angry about the hypocrisy until the end of the Trump administration, after which you would say, that guy was such a jerk. I'm so angry about his hypocrisy. And he would fan himself with the stack of $100 bills and say, woo, it's getting hot in here the way you are angry with me. And then that would be that. So take heart in that. And let's turn now to Joan, who's joining us. Joan McCarter, our senior political writer, who very often wants to discuss these issues churning in Congress. At some point, we have to kind of free you from that. That's got to be particularly frustrating. But the floor is yours. Although I'd like to stay in here and talk to you on it, if you don't mind.
You get to stay.
Okay, terrific.
You get to stay.
I do not yield for any other purpose. Okay. So good morning, Joan. How's it going?
Good morning.
Thank you. I was just, pulling out the morning's clips here and all the clips that it reminded me of. This each new story, each new day, bringing the new stories and reminding me, hey, I feel like we've talked about this one before, or something quite like it, or I remember when this used to be an issue for Republicans, but suddenly it isn't.
Yeah.
Okay, not surprising.
Reminded me that Richard Burr benefited from the Stock Act, or benefited from not voting for this. I don't know. Richard Burr made a ton of money in the Senate, several million, and was one of 2 votes against the Stock Act.
Yeah.
Well, anyway,
he was voting his own self-interest.
Anyway, it doesn't make any difference now, does it?
No, it doesn't appear to. However, they would like you to know that they are definitely against whatever it is. That thing is that Republicans were against then, and whatever. Oh, and if they're not doing that, if they're in fact not evidencing at all that they're against it, then they just want you to know that something emails probably look over there.
Yeah.
Besides which, don't make up all
and
this
that
stuff
horrible healthcare law that was just going to destroy the very fabric of America.
Yes.
Not such a big deal anymore. Repealing it's really not going to make any difference.
Yeah, so they don't want to waste their time. They want to be efficient, right? I mean, why waste our time repealing this thing if it doesn't make a difference? I don't know. Will they give up their fervor?
No, when they do repeal it, it's not going to make any difference. Because really, it's not that many people that it's affected. Just a tiny little portion of the market.
I see.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. That's reassuring as well. Although I still wonder whether they're going to repeal and replace it with the exact same thing and just say, it's radically different. And I told you nothing would change.
We can only hope so.
Yeah,
I doubt it. And the problem is, in the replacing part, how long it's going to take them to do it and what falls apart while we're waiting around. I guess there's going to be a lot that falls apart while we're waiting around.
And I suppose, I guess we might ask, well, what's the easier money? If you repealed it and replaced it with exactly the same thing and just changed the name, I don't suppose that I don't know. I guess there's always a way to make money with something. But if on the other hand, you could short all the giant insurance stocks and then repeal the thing and not replace it with anything and watch those stocks tank, having secured your profit, I suppose that would be a thing to do.
It would be a thing to do. They would certainly be happy to do it.
Yeah. And it would be really interesting then to prosecute them under the Stock Act, only to have them say, there's no more public information in the world than the fact that we intended to repeal this law.
Right.
That's not
We've been talking about it for 6 years.
Yeah. I mean, I think that'll end up being, if any Republicans were to get prosecuted under this act, whether it's this or the Lockheed Martin thing, I assume that their excuse would be that you can't call that insider information. I've been saying it on the record forever. And they'd have a point, and that's the sort of thing I think you would escape on.
Chances are, yes.
Oh, well.
What so frustrates me about this story that I wrote this morning is how uneducated, how ignorant of what the law actually did these people remain 6 years later.
Oh, yeah. Are you talking about our friends
our
in
senator,
Kentucky?
our Republican senators.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Like Lamar Alexander, who is actually chairman of the Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee.
These are people it's okay to call ignorant. Yes, all right.
Who says, it's a relatively small part of the insurance market, 6%. So, that's all of the market that's tied up in this. And he thinks the exchanges are the problem. He's honed in on what his little reptile brain can understand, that there's an exchange where you buy insurance, and he thinks the whole problem is bound up in that. Not recognizing the extent to which this law has actually changed healthcare systems in the United States. He just doesn't get how far this has reached into how healthcare is delivered, and how yanking it away affects 30 million people, actually, rather than 20, because when it's gone, the individual insurance market is essentially going to collapse. When the individual mandate to buy insurance is gone, you can't actually force insurance companies to cover pre-existing conditions and all of those people without raising prices for them, without making that insurance unaffordable. So there's 52 million people who are going to have a hard time getting health insurance because of pre-existing conditions. And then you've got Bob Corker, who gets all of his information on how this works from Lamar Alexander, who says, it doesn't seem to me that it would really take that long to come up with a replacement.
Oh,
so,
well.
you know, this is easy.
Sure.
This is easy.
Start anytime you like.
Never mind that we haven't done it for the past 6 years, that we haven't figured out how to do it, that there is nothing to actually replace this system and cover as many people and get rid of all of the abuses in the private insurance industry that were there prior to the law, unless you do it with a law just like this. So, I started out my day grumpy.
Yeah, well, I can...
It's going to continue to be grumpy, I think, but
you wonder sometimes...
Talk about beating your head against a wall.
Yeah.
6 years they've had to try to understand this. And Lamar Alexander, who is in charge of the committee that passed this thing.
Yeah, if you understand it, if you have a conscience and you understand it, you'll feel bad about campaigning the way they did. And so they needed a sort of a plausible deniability. They're smart-ish people, and I guess they just thought it was too soul-crushing to understand that the truth is the opposite of this. I might as well just block that out. Although, you know, they just might be really adept at compartmentalizing that way. You wonder, how could it be that the people in charge of any of it, designing an alternative or understanding how the one that they say they hate really works so they could explain why they hate it, how could it be that they really just have no idea about these things? And I guess if you live... I mean, the most charitable explanation is they live in a world of charts and graphs, not in a real world of actually handling insurance themselves or for their family members. And look, the chart says it's only going to affect X. If I read the whole report, I'll find out that later on it says, well, then that will do this and this will do that, so on down the line. And, you know, maybe they should have read it.
I think the most charitable explanation is that they're lying.
Oh,
that
well, that's a
they really do understand how it all works, and they're freaked out about it, but they're going to be lying to the American public about what it does. That's more charitable.
Well, it's a more charitable reading of their intellectual capacity, I guess. Well, they do understand it. They're very smart, and they know exactly what they're doing, but they're lying anyway. I guess in a moral sense, it would be perhaps more charitable to say, yeah, they don't live in the real world.
For me, this ties into the story that Greg was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Sarah Cliff's interviews in Kentucky.
Of course.
Which, as an aside, how Sarah Cliff got through those interviews without doing actual bodily harm to some of these people, I don't know. I don't think I would have been able to do it.
Yeah, well.
Not slap them silly.
You can get arrested.
Yes, Armando's point that it's racism is very good and very valid. But there's also the part where there's a total disconnect between government and their lives. And if they're senators, they're Republican senators who they're listening to are so blithely ignorant of how all of this works, so uninvolved, so not caring, why should their constituents be?
I guess there's a point there, too.
There's a role model there for them in, well, government really doesn't make that much difference. Let's pull this lever and see what happens. It's not really going to make a difference anyway because it's just government, it's just politicians, and all they do is talk.
I guess. Of course, that would be a view that they were encouraged in taking by people as far back as Newt Gingrich.
Absolutely.
Said, I will shut down the government because what do you care?
Absolutely. And this is where Democrats have culpability, in my mind, for the years that they did not stand up for Obamacare, that they did not talk about how it was helping people. And yeah, there was a lot wrong with it. And yeah, premiums were expensive, but expensive premiums as opposed to being uninsured.
Yeah. And interestingly, now that reminds me of the discussion I've had over the past couple of days with Greg about the coal mining jobs, where for whatever reason they're able to convince themselves, sure, this job is dangerous and my friends are dying because the owners won't pay for safety measures, but at least it's a job and it's better than nothing. But somehow that that never applies in terms of, sure, this is more expensive than I wish it was, but I have coverage now, and having it, even if it's more expensive than I wish it was, is better than nothing. But I guess that, I don't know, somehow that doesn't fly.
No.
I'm not sure why. But I was also thinking in all of this when I was just trying to imagine, could it really be possible that these guys just don't understand how it works? I mean, policy at a certain level gets complex and tough, but this is pretty straightforward. Then I think of the story of Ben Nelson saying, I don't know how ATMs work.
Yeah.
Because I've never used them. And just thinking, I'm not taking, I have your story up here, and I'm looking at Orrin Hatch's face here and looking at Mitch McConnell's face. And I'm just thinking about the Kentucky story again, because, of course, Mitch McConnell's from Kentucky. That's why they went there. And just thinking about the people that Sarah Cliff is talking to and what they're like and what they look like, essentially, and how they recognize one another as, honest-to-God Kentuckians. And, okay, they made the weird voting choice, but they all sort of acknowledge one another in real time and space and say, we have some common life experience between us. And then looking at Mitch McConnell and just saying, that guy's from Kentucky? That's the guy they chose from You'd think, why don't they send somebody, in work clothes or something? I know you got to dress up. It's rules in the Senate. But, I mean, this guy has no bearing on, I hate the government. They don't do anything anyway. They don't have any bearing on my life. Well, look at your senator. Just take a look. He comes to Kentucky maybe, a couple of weekends a year to go to Fancy Farm, for God's sake, of all things. And, who spends their time there? I don't know. I guess it's the same everywhere. And senators are always just generally disconnected. That's the kind of person who gets elected to the Senate. And it's the sort of thing that the Senate does to them anyway. And they have to spend their lives in this rarefied air, and then eventually they begin to look like they do. But I find it weird.
Understand how grocery store scanners or ATMs work.
That's how you get those kind of stories. Yeah, that's true. Right. And I don't know. Meanwhile, Hillary Clinton, you do run into in the grocery store. That's weird.
Right.
She doesn't know how servers work, but neither do you. So,
You can bet Trump doesn't.
Yeah, well, no.
Trump has mastered Twitter. I think that's as far as his technological abilities extend.
Right. And I can imagine. Trump is the kind of guy you could imagine seeing like some kind of major internet disaster taking out the internet and him trying to use Twitter on his phone and saying, but I'm not connected to the internet.
Right.
I'm on my phone.
Right.
But anyway, at the same time, he's also the kind of guy who turns out to have secret servers that communicate with Russian banks in his building, and no one knows why. I don't know how this happened to me. So, I don't know. I'm sure he hired somebody to set that one up. But we're assured that that's nothing. That's a big mistake. We don't know. We haven't used that server in 10 years. It was just sitting in there talking to Russian banks.
We don't know why.
Who could?
How'd it get there?
For sure?
Does it have legs?
I don't know. The point is, look at that guy over there who's from a union. He sucks. Yep. I don't know. So, all right. Well, same story over and over again here. But, okay, I can well understand your frustration in this morning's story. Are there worse stories to come later today?
Oh, I'm sure there are worse stories to come.
But do you know? Do you have any inside information about it?
Merry effing Christmas.
Well,
I had to do my Christmas cards this week, and it was really a challenge. Mostly I just said Merry Christmas and signed my name. And
no, that's okay.
Didn't delve into what's happening in the world, because goodness.
It's not possible. You could not have said Merry Christmas because Donald Trump has not yet freed you to do that, and you're a liberal, so you must certainly have written, you probably were like, hey, merry whatever you celebrate. In fact, you don't even have to be merry. It's a safe space for you to be upset if you want to be at this time of year, which is no different from any other time of year. Scientifically speaking, I believe in science. Thank you. That should be
well, scientifically speaking, it is in our hemisphere colder.
But I thought it was getting warmer.
Hey, look, snow.
So it's disproven.
Global
Right.
warming is a lie.
That's right. The Earth doesn't tilt. Are you crazy? God wouldn't make something off axis like that. It should be straight up and down, just like it is on my globe here, which is what? Oh my God! Who tilted my globe? Well, I guess they're just. Not
We
going to get
do
used to
have
this.
other things to talk about.
Yes.
Some of which is the Senate. Some of
yes.
which is
All right, then.
Russia. Some of which is like Jeff Sessions.
That guy.
Jefferson Beauregard Sessions III, who, did you see this story?
I don't know yet. What?
Filled out all of his paperwork for his nomination,
Yes. Good.
leaving out the part about how he wasn't confirmed as a judge because he was too racist.
I see. Well,
Just, everybody knows that part. He can just skip that.
I guess so. Well, is there a line on the form for things that you were rejected for because
Yes,
you're racist?
as a matter of fact, well, not because you're a racist,
Ah.
but things that you have been rejected for before. Yeah, there's a line.
Oh, well,
in
that's
that.
good.
You just
That's-
skip that
that's
one
a lot
over.
of foresight. So he didn't put anything on that one?
Nope.
Yeah. Well, I didn't get that job, so... Oh, no, well... Well, if it's
Well, you all
specifically...
remember that. This is the
Yeah.
Judiciary Committee. It was the same committee that rejected me. Half of you were still there.
I
so
knew this place seemed familiar.
yeah.
I feel like I've been here before, though I was on the other side of this table. So, okay, well, he left that one out. Luckily, there's institutional memory here in this committee, and they know that. So I gather he'll face some questions about that.
He'll face some questions about that if Dianne Feinstein lives up to her tweets.
Oh, okay.
Some of the shuffling you may have missed at the end of session. Feinstein has left the Intelligence Committee
Oh,
to become ranking member on Judiciary. Because Leahy did,
Yeah.
I don't remember what Leahy has moved to.
he moved? Okay, well, I guess it was a shuffled everybody. Tell me it's intelligence.
Anyway, they've shuffled around. Di-Fi is now ranking on Judiciary as opposed to Intelligence.
Well, good. That'll be a learning experience for her.
Well, it's helpful on Intelligence, actually, to have, I think it's Wyden who's ranking now.
That will be helpful. That will be very different.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was a lot of tension over a lot of years over the interpretations of, an awful lot of things, but a lot of national security questions. That there was a very dramatic tension between the way Judiciary Committee members interpreted something and Intelligence Committee members interpreted something. And, I look forward to maybe broadening her horizons on those questions.
Now that I'm looking at it, I'm thinking that maybe I was too optimistic, and I'm thinking maybe Warner.
Oh? Wyden, that would be really something different.
Yeah.
Are we looking for then who's becoming ranking member on Intelligence? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I don't suppose that will be immediately available, but I'm sure they've been talking about that. Okay. Well,
Yeah, Warner.
Warner. All right. Well, that's a bit of a step down. It's a W,
Yeah,
but it's
I
a
was
step
being
down.
too optimistic.
I'm big on W.
Because I've seen Wyden mostly out there on this stuff. But anyway, what else to talk about?
Well,
I'm trying to find anything slightly optimistic that we can
optimistic.
discuss.
That's a
And
different file. I don't have anything optimistic. I'll look around and see if there's anything. I have a lot of pessimistic garbage.
the Department of Energy yesterday told Trump to get bent, and they aren't sharing names of people who've been working on climate science with him. That was good.
Yes. Was that energy or was that EPA? I knew EPA had been asked.
EPA. It was
for
EPA.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Energy on our minds because the
Because
guy
of
from
Rick
Dancing with
Perry
the
and
Stars
Oops.
Yeah. is going to be in there, and you do get the feeling that they didn't they don't know and they didn't look to find out what's the real portfolio of the Department of Energy.
Yeah.
You know?
They don't, yeah. They think it's oil.
Yes, because that's energy. And
Yeah.
I mean, I can well understand why they would think that, but there's books that say different. And like, you know, nobody looked and wouldn't ring a bell for you. Like the Department of Energy is headed by that really strange looking guy who looks like a nuclear scientist or something. And he is one.
I wonder why.
And he was in the news all the time. And Department of Energy, the Secretaries of Energy are not really frequently in the news. They were doing something extraordinarily important and difficult to negotiate with people from all over the world. Something.
What would that have been?
And I don't know. I was rehearsing for Dancing with the Stars at the time, but I could look it up.
I'll put on my smart glasses and then I'll know.
Yeah. Well, okay. So, they, of course, believe that that's about, oil drilling and natural gas drilling and all sorts of drilling, really. And it's really not a very big part of what they do, and that's handled elsewhere. And I think that's odd, and it might be ripe for reorganization or renaming of the department, but it doesn't, or I guess in his view, abolition of the department.
Yes.
I guess maybe that's it. Or when he gets there and he
if
says...
he remembers.
That's
he might
true,
forget.
too. You never know where he'll show up for work either, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I can't recall what it was. It's Department of something. Here's one. I'll just go in that. Oh, it's not this one? Oops. Yeah, so, although it will make an interesting excuse if he gets there and he finally discovers what goes on and he says, I knew there was a reason I wanted to eliminate this department. Did you know that the Secretary of Energy doesn't even do anything with energy? It's all this nuclear stuff. So I'm closing us down.
Fun times.
But it's good news that they did do that. That was a very strange story over at EPA.
Yeah.
That
it was a terrifying story.
Yeah. One of the few demands that they had, and I understood that for the longest time, no transition people from the Trump camp had bothered to show up at EPA. And when they did, I think it was the EPA, the story, someone was reporting, they sent a staffer over there, they had one person, and they showed up, and they're like, okay, well, over here is the office of the guy that you people will be depending on to help you figure out where everything is and how it works. And his name is, and a guy says, I didn't bring a pen. So, it's like, oh, well, never mind then. I'm sure it's on the internet. Look it up later. No questions, no pen, no nothing. But a few days later, they were asking for the names of anybody any staffers and climate scientists who had ever helped out on figuring out this Chinese hoax called climate change. Just wanted to find out who they are for some reason. And
meanwhile, scientists all over the United States and Canada, as it turns out, are stockpiling the information or downloading as much of the information that's publicly available from the EPA on global warming to preserve it.
Right, because they could just come in and say, oh, my first order is erase all this stupid Chinese hoax stuff. It's probably going to get us hacked. It's all malicious malware. I mean, I guess under that premise, you could probably have them do that. And although all these the climate scientists and others working at the EPA and elsewhere in the government are ostensibly protected by law, as if that mattered, from being fired for political reasons in many cases. My guess is that they just want their names. And we just wanted to be sure of, what they had done and what their records were, and if the, list of names and email addresses or maybe even physical addresses got out there to the internet somewhere. Well, they're public employees, so it's not a violation of any kind. And I don't know why all these people began getting death threats or having people show up with AR-15s at their kids' preschools, but gosh, they're quitting. So I wasn't going to fire them because that's against the law. But boy, are they heading for the exits. It's weird. Guess we're going to have to hire some new scientists around here. That would be strange. So I'm guessing that that's half the plan. They might actually feel somewhat constrained from firing them, although I know that they would love to have a test case and just say, we're firing them anyway, and let's see whether the courts think they can reinstate them, because I'm just going to lock the doors. So I'm glad that the EPA told them no, but then they'll replace the people who said no at some point, and they'll replace them with people who say yes. We'll see whether the middle bureaucracy throws anything up in their path.
The one saving grace is that stuff takes a long time to undo in the federal government, in our bureaucracy. And hopefully enough people stick around long enough in all of these departments to make it happen as slowly as possible for the next 4 years.
Yeah. Well, I hope so, although it'll be an excruciating time.
For everybody.
But, they may want to hold on to those jobs regardless and just say, well, I'll draw my salary as long as I can and drag my feet. That's a well-known.
It's the patriotic thing to do.
Believe it or not, it appears to be true. Good luck to them, and thanks to the folks in the right places at EPA for stomping on that one, at least for the time being.
And speaking of people standing up to do the right thing, engineers and code writers and just general people working for Silicon Valley companies, while their bosses are going to meet with Trump today, or have signed a pledge, started circulating a pledge to say, we will not participate at all in any kind of Muslim registry. Not going to do it.
That's a good place to start, too. They need to be wary of how their work can be used for that, for other registries, for other inquiries that would otherwise be improper. But, okay, that's the best place to start, and a good place to build a template for resisting other similar efforts.
And it makes their bosses look bad.
Yeah.
Hopefully their bosses take that message to Trump today.
Yeah. Don't be evil, guys. Isn't that somebody's pledge? Yes. That's
Isn't
Google.
it? Sounds familiar.
Yeah, it does. But then they own a military robot company. Somebody's great tweet, right? From changing from "don't be evil" to "let's make military robots." So it's not us. We're not coding any search engines that'll help you find Muslims. We just have electric deer that will roam through the countryside, rounding them up. So there's a lot of weirdness to look out for in the future. All right. Well, let's see. Any other items that might make their way to your plate? It's almost fruitless at some point to look for anything optimistic. But certainly, we can generate some good news as people find ways to stand up to the bad news we're having to bring them. So that's the best I can
we can enjoy Harry Reid continuing to be Harry Reid.
Yes.
Unplugged. Okay. Having a good time trashing whoever he feels like trashing, including being really proud, apparently, that he called George Bush's dog fat once. He's still happy about that.
Okay. Well, we'll let him have that.
But, he's also saying, look, this is what happened when we found out about Russian hacking. This is how Republican leaders didn't let the rest of the world know about it. This is what's happening here.
In the last couple of days, we have to find a way to continue to tap his inside knowledge of how things occurred when he's finally outside of government.
Yeah.
Where will he park himself? Is he going back to Nevada? Is that a ridiculous question to ask of ex-senators still, or?
I don't, not of him, because he is very much not Washington, D.C., and he is very much Nevada.
Yeah.
So
maybe he'll feel more comfortable spilling the beans from there. And you can hear him on the other end of a telephone, reporters, if you're thinking about it. What am I supposed to do if he's not here?
You can always call him up. He's probably going to be happy to talk to you.
Yeah. Yeah, that is weird how that's sort of, I mean, it's a huge part of the way reporters obviously usually do their job, but information like that, and the Capitol Hill reporters, it sort of tends to be, well, all right, I get my initial story ideas by, I walk to this spot in the Capitol and I hold up a microphone and then people come and say things.
And these people tell me stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying it's like they don't do a good job or they don't have a job to do. It's just that's the normal channels of information, and there'll be a different person speaking, and you can't skip it. You can't skip what Schumer's coming to say just because you found Harry Reid more interesting, and you can't skip it and call Harry Reid and say, tell me a story, Harry. But
you really should call Harry Reid and say, tell me a story.
Yeah. Well, you ought to. Or that's what Schumer can do, right? He'll do a press conference and then say, by the way, I have Harry Reid on speakerphone. He wants to tell you something. I don't think it's going to work that way. The idea of the microphone not being occupied by Chuck Schumer seems ridiculous. But we'll miss him. That's for sure. And he's got a lot of stories to tell. And Schumer more circumspect in that sort of thing.
Yeah, very much so. And less combative in that way. Mm-hmm. So we'll see. In some ways, I think I'm going to be happier with Schumer in the opposition than were Schumer majority leader. I hope.
I could see that possibly being the case.
We shall see.
Right.
What else do I have to tell you?
I don't know.
Really,
It's the end of the year.
It's the end of the year. It's the end of a really, really, really horrible year.
It has not been a good one. So, yeah, I can imagine. All right.
We will bring you what good news we can find.
Yeah.
You know that. When we find good news, you'll hear it.
That's true. We do have one more shot at it, I guess, if you're going to be around next Wednesday. I don't know. It becomes busy season then. What's your plan?
I will be around next Wednesday.
Excellent. My kids, I think will still be in school that Wednesday. It's only Thursday that it becomes hairy around here again. So, very good. Well, we'll check in with you then, and you have a week to find something more cheery. We still have a minute or two if there's something you want to sneak in terms of either what's coming up on the front page, your own work, or someone else's that is something to look forward to, or just did we miss anything? I'm drawing a blank at this point.
Yeah, I don't have happy stuff to look forward to, but you'll be informed.
Okay. Well, the front page rolls on regardless.
Yes.
So,
we'll be there for you.
Yes. And always a great source of information, not only the dramatic stories, but as always, the midday open thread usually. You know what? Usually find something at least entertaining, if not entirely uplifting there as well. Just the short hits it might be the best bet for today. In-depth stories are bound to be depressing at this point.
Yes, they are.
If you only knew. We're telling you, and it sucks.
So that's where we're at this Wednesday.
Okay.
Next Wednesday, hopefully, will be different.
Yeah, sure. We'll hope for a better time next Wednesday. Why not? Okay. Well, thank you for stopping by and getting us up to date on even at least the horrible news.
You're most welcome.
We take what we have here and deal with it as it comes. We'll look forward to a better week and more percolation of this Russia story. Although I do see there's a new sort of congressional angle. It's the elections angle, of course, but everybody coming to grips with, actually a lot of this information that was stolen was dumped into Oppo research in congressional races around the country too, not just the presidential race.
Yes, it was.
Democratic, the DNC and DCCC apparently keeping tabs on races all over the place. As it happens.
How does that work? And Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell being apparently A-okay with that.
Sure, because they have huge respect for their colleagues.
Yes, indeed.
All right. Well, maybe the heat gets turned up over the next week and we hear more about it. Hopefully it stays in the news and America Learns to Care.
That would be helpful, wouldn't it?
It would. I remember when Russia was a place that we weren't really super happy about having interfering in our stuff. But I guess they're awesome patriots now.
I guess so.
Well, their flag's red, white,
it's
and blue.
It's a funny old world.
Yep. Things change. All right. Well, thanks, Joan, for stopping by. And
you are welcome.
I look forward to speaking with you next week and making something fun happen in between. So
I'll do my best.
Okay. Terrific.
Right.
We'll check in with you
Bye-bye.
then. Take care. All right. So that leaves us with just a couple of minutes to wrap up. And then, of course, time to hand things over to the guys on the after show who will bat clean up for us as usual and touch on all the interesting stuff we didn't get to fill out for you. I'm glad that Joan brought up the EPA story. Definitely something I wanted to touch on and express my concerns about. And let's see. Anything else we want to make sure that we get to? All right. Well, there's a couple other stories. I see some good things percolating for Friday. Some other possible conflicts of interest, believe it or not, coming up for Donald Trump, including the possibility of, I guess, a Republican finally delivering, although I don't know how long Republicans have been super interested in this. It's the latest fad. You know how Republicans are about Israel. Donald Trump, it says here in the Washington Post, could soon discard a long-standing precedent on Israel, just as he discarded long-standing precedent on Taiwan, and move the American embassy to Jerusalem. It has been left traditionally in Tel Aviv, and there's lots of symbolism to moving it to Jerusalem. I understand from reports the other day that there were members of the Trump team bumming around Jerusalem thinking about moving that embassy, and I guess they're not interested in the plot of land that has been set aside for some years for that, and instead, I guess, scouting out locations. Wouldn't that be interesting? And there's some good inside information for them to work on. Wouldn't it be weird if the Trump organization went and bought up some large plot of land in Jerusalem, and then when they decided to move the embassy to Jerusalem, they said, well, here's some land that happens to be available for you to use, and buy it at inflated prices from the Trump organization? Well, that wouldn't be a new deal at that point, would it? After all, we owned the land before, and we're just disposing of it. It's the end of an old deal, not the beginning of a new one, right? Look for spin like that. And stay tuned and look for stories like these and others coming up on the Wednesday edition of the After Show. How about this? The mother of dapper neo-Nazi, and they're also dapper, Richard Spencer, faces financial ruin as her Montana town turns against her. She's not dapper enough. That's the problem. Franklin Graham backs Trump's manufacturing jobs plan because there is no pride in 6-digit salaries writing computer code. And in an open letter, employees from all the major tech companies, remember this, Joan just mentioned this, vow not to help Trump surveil Muslims or, importantly, deport immigrants. In the last half, they'll be reporting that the French foreign minister says Trump's handling of China was not very clever. And we know Teddy Roosevelt. We almost feel like we're friends with Teddy Roosevelt. Teddy Roosevelt was a Rough Rider, progressive environmentalist, and big oil trust buster. And guess what?
From Daily Co's Radio,
I'll tell you in a minute.
On
You know what's coming.
NetworksRadio.com. You have been listening to the Kagro in the Morning Show
with David Waltman.
Well, guess how that one ends. Donald Trump, if you'll recall the old line, is no Teddy Roosevelt. All of that, and as usual, the Connect, Unite, Act, Daily Coast Community Calendar, and more on the After Show, brought to you by Wink and Justice, and coming up here on Netroots Radio now. Stay tuned.